Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Hot Pot. It's cycle 53, and we're making some okay progress here. The map definitely looks a little bit different than last time. The chief thing that we were able to do is actually surround our base with insulated tiles, and that is going all the way around right now. Does look a little jagged, but, you know, whatever. I was trying to get up on the edge as far as I could. I wasn't actually sure how far I should be trying to carve into this, but there is still quite a bit of heat, especially up in this area, coming into my base. But the center of it still looks pretty good. As far as I can tell, it's going to maintain like this for at least a little while. That's going to cause a lot of other concerns that we need to solve. So, one big thing that I did is I have not been pushing forward on my research recently because I really wanted to get this base closed so I could use all of my dupes just for that. So not a whole lot of research going on. And as you might notice, I did move my food to a more central location. Probably harvest these. Just because this is effectively going to be the coolest part of my base if it's like directly in the center of the whole like area that this is in. Yeah, so just trying to conserve that as much as possible. And something that I'm realizing that, again, I would have realized if I had played on this map before, but I haven't. That is that we're going to be in this little bubble for a long time. And that's for a couple reasons. One is getting suits up is going to be really difficult, considering I don't have any reed fibers. So I don't even know what's out on the map at this point. As far as I can tell, I'm basically just surrounded by extremely hot wasteland, and I don't know if there's anywhere to even get reed fibers. So I think at this point I just have to assume that I'm not going to get them, because I can't rely on being able to get them, because I would have to just start digging somewhere and hope I get there. So that's kind of not going to work. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to come up with some kind of cooling setup and slowly like push out in a certain direction and like cool it as I move. Because if you start having dupes digging in here, this is like 160 Fahrenheit. This is like there is nowhere on Earth that is this hot. Your dupes will just start to take damage if they go into this area. And I can't do that without some kind of protection. So I think what I'm going to try to do, so I'm going to try to set up some kind of cooling system, because I'm going to need both that to be able to push out and to be able to sit in my base. That is assuming that no reed fibers get spawned from the printing pod, and assuming that I don't somehow find some. I don't know how else I would. There's also no Drecos or anything like that, so I don't really have an option to get that. So, yeah, cooling is definitely going to be a big deal here in a little while, and I have some thoughts on that. I think I realize I don't exactly want to do this, but I'll come back to that thought, because I do want to show this before I forget. This is the morb setup that we were talking about, and you might notice that all my planted oxyferns are now uprooted. I'm making oxygen exclusively off of these morbs right now. You can see in the area it's looking pretty good. Everywhere else it's not so great. The ventilation is just not as open as I would like it here. And if I'm going to take on more dupes, I'm going to need more morbs as well. So I'm creating a second morb area right here. That'll start coming up once this area is completed. And I'm going to continually scrunch these areas down a little bit more once I am not needing to, or once these are no longer spawning any more morbs. I will scrunch this down to just 2 tiles tall so we can save as much space as possible. And especially if we're going to be here for a while, like this is all we have to work with. So I need to conserve as much space as I possibly can. And maybe even have other buildings in here and put the deodorizers physically in the side here. And maybe have other buildings just to try and save room. But yeah, so that's going to be happening. A new morb area is going to be happening, but I really do need a 4th dupe here pretty soon. And especially now that my oxygen is really stabilizing quite a bit, like this density is looking pretty good. And once I start getting this other area started, I think I'm going to take on a 4th dupe. And that 4th dupe is probably going to be for farming and ranching, because I don't really have anything for that right now. And I do want to move these hatches, by the way, which I don't think I can do without ranching. It's been a long time since I've had to do this, but let me do this hatch and hatchling. Let me see if I can capture these. Yeah, I can. Okay. So, yeah, I think my 4th dupe is going to have to be some kind of rancher or farmer or both. And I think that's going to be so... I'm getting some idle warnings here, by the way. Let me give them something to do. This is going to be so I can start up some of my coal power, because I think the long-term plan to get this cooling loop up, it's going to be weird, and here's my thought. I've never done anything like this before, but I'm trying to think of where I can actually generate resources from. So, and namely, it's where I can generate power from and how I can handle like an aqua tuner, for example. So, a couple thoughts that I had is there's also no iron in here, which means I have no prospect of getting steel until I leave. So, a cooling loop that's set up, assuming that it's going to boil water and be cooled by a steam turbine, that's just dead. It's not going to happen. Getting a lot of idle notices here, by the way. I don't really have anything for them to work on right now, so that's kind of lame. So I guess I'll just be idling for a little while, because I don't want to just sit here with that paused. But yeah, so trying to think through all this, I have no access to steel and no access to suits. So I'm stuck here, and I have one metal type. I don't even have gold here. So if I'm making a cooling loop, my thought here is what can I get off of other things for free? And some things I can get is that I can have dupes stop using outhouses once I have enough morbs, which maybe I'll have to switch back and forth, I don't know. So that can get polluted water that way, and it's not a ton, but it's at least some. But the other thing that I can get are these. I can get lumber, and lumber represents a lot of different things. If I can harvest lumber myself and in a pretty efficient quantity, that can represent a lot of energy by way of petroleum generators, which actually do take ethanol, which can be refined from lumber. And this will also produce quite a bit of polluted water for me too. I'll need to use polluted water to grow the arbor trees, and I'm not going to use any like crazy waterfall farming or anything like that. I'm just going to use regular farming, just because I'm guessing that the game was built with the intention of you playing it that way rather than playing it any other way. Let's see if we get a farmer. Yeah, I think I gotta take this. This is not the greatest dupe right now, but we're not gonna be super picky, because again, watching me just reroll all day is boring. Old Man Jamble is a great name, by the way. Okay, so back to what I was talking about. I was talking about getting ethanol up, and I think what I'm gonna have to do is, if I'm thinking about cooling, I need to think about it in a couple of different ways. I can't boil water, but I still do need something to absorb the heat from the aqua tuner. And what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to make ethanol out of this lumber. And I think once the ethanol gets warm enough, I'm going to use that for energy. And the idea here is I'm not necessarily cooling the ethanol, I'm just deleting it. And then what I'll be doing with all the hot CO2 and stuff like that gets created is I'm just going to be deleting it with a carbon skimmer. And I'll make that on a small closed loop. And the cooling will be like only able to run if the ethanol is cool enough. So the expectation is that the polluted water coming from the power generators is cool enough for me to use on the lumber or arbor trees. Those drop lumber. I turn that back into ethanol, which is ideally cool, or at least cooled, or at least I'm gaining something from doing that. I heat the ethanol by an aqua tuner, which is then cooling some water somewhere. So I'm getting some kind of payoff of like polluted water being cooled by this aqua tuner that's submerged in ethanol. And then I just delete the hot ethanol when it gets too hot. That's my best idea, and I've never done anything like this before. But we're just going to hope it works out. So I had to look up a couple stats on this just to see how this would work. And if we just search ethanol, it looks like we can only go up to about 173, which could be intentional or not, because the metals that I have will only allow my aqua tuner to go up until about 167. So I need to be really careful with this and make sure I don't break my aqua tuner and I don't boil the ethanol. So it's going to be interesting, and I don't know if this is going to work, but I think it's going to work. And I think that'll give me a ton of power, so I can obviously run the aqua tuner in the first place. But secondly, so that I can swap back and forth between that and coal and keep a good power surplus going. I think even, it may be even to the point where I'll just have an override for the petroleum generators if they get too hot. Or sorry, if the ethanol gets too hot. Yeah, that's my best idea. So I'm just trying to think of where I can actually generate resources from, because I'm not getting anything from the map. I'm not getting anything from any of these geysers or anything. Like, this is it. I gotta make this work. And to me, this is, I think, the key to doing this, and I'm pretty sure this is why this center area is made of this like dirt, nature, or whatever you want to call it, biome. I think that's the intention, and I think that I can also ranch these pips just to make sure I don't run out of dirt, because we're going to be on mealwood for who knows how long, maybe forever. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. I have no idea how this is going to play out, but that's my plan. So the first steps to that plan is really just starting to get ranching up so I can get coal and at least get off of this basic power, so that I can actually start manufacturing some ethanol out of these, out of the lumber that I have right now. I have quite a bit of it. And then after that, I think it's going to be standing up the pip ranch and the arbor tree farm in the same place, and then finding a place to generate some polluted water to get this started. Which may be bathrooms, I'm not sure yet. I don't know how this timing is going to shake out, but that's the plan. So, that's the strategy. And I have no idea if this is going to work or not, and if it fails, then we're going to watch it fail. And if it succeeds, then we're hopefully going to watch it succeed, because I've never done this before, and I have not gone off and watched videos or tried to study and see what I'm doing, because I think it's more interesting to play in a way where I'm just kind of having to figure it out, solve stuff on the fly. So that's what we're going to do. So these should all be uploaded in a batch, so there should be another part after this. So you know there's another part after this, but I don't know what's about to happen, so check out the next part if you want to see what happened in the next, I don't know, 30, 40 cycles, whatever it is. So anyway, I'll see you there. Have a good one.